It's here first from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. A new research project has been launched that will study how environmental factors affect Iowans' health. And later in the episode, former residents of a teen treatment center in Missouri are suing it, saying they experienced abuse there. It's Thursday, June 4th. University of Iowa researchers have announced a new research program focused on understanding how environmental exposures affect human health. Here's more from IPR's Natalie Krebs.
The Iowa Integrated Network for Science, Information, and Geospatial Health Tracking, or INSIGHT, is a partnership between the UI Center for Health Effects of Environmental Contamination and IIHR Hydroscience and Engineering Department. The project will study how environmental factors like nitrate and PFAS affect Iowans' health. David Swartney is the director of the Center for Health Effects of Environmental Contamination. He says community education and engagement are important parts of the program.
We want people to understand their environmental vulnerabilities so they can actually take action or talk to their representatives and figure out how to address it, and not just engage in conversations that may not be relevant to them or their community.
Researchers say Iowa Insight will last 5 years. Its initial funding is through a $5 million donation from the Kyle J. and Sharon Krause Family Foundation. I'm Natalie Krebs, IPR News.
Industry leaders at the World Pork Expo in Des Moines are optimistic about consumer demand for pork. Representatives from the National Pork Producers Council say the latest federal dietary guidelines put more emphasis on protein and exports are strong. But Pat McGonigal, CEO of the Iowa Pork Producers Association, says producers still face challenges and many are still recovering from record losses a few years ago.
Profits are modest, but what I hear from producers is we have not filled the hole that we created in 23 and 24. And so it's going to take a little bit of time of profitability to kind of equalize things.
The National Pork Producers Council says passing the House version of the Farm Bill in the Senate and renewing the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement would benefit producers' profits. A former Western Iowa teacher now faces new charges after police in Atlantic arrested him for grooming and sexual exploitation of a student. 34-year-old Jesse McCann of Greenfield was fired from his job as a high school guidance counselor with the Atlantic School District in February. Last month, he pleaded not guilty to separate charges after a former elementary student reported McCann had inappropriately touched her 10 years earlier. At the time, McCann worked for the Western Central Valley Community School District in Stewart. The Iowa Board of Educational Examiners has permanently revoked McCann's teaching license. Tuesday was the deadline for Governor Kim Reynolds to take action on all the bills that pass the 2026 legislature. And if lawmakers don't have a special session in the next 6 months, it's the last time Reynolds will sign or veto bills. She says it's been bittersweet. Reynolds says as she and her staff reviewed bills over the past few days, her emotions veered from elation to tears. But Reynolds says she's proud of how things have turned out.
Sometimes that is not the way it goes when it's your final year and you're a lame duck. Sometimes it's kind of irrelevant what the governor wants. And what I experienced for my last legislative session was legislators and leaders in both the House and the Senate remained committed to putting Iowans first.
Reynolds says the property tax limitations she signed into law last month are lawmakers' highest accomplishment. She says the legislation may not be perfect, but it's substantial and will ultimately save taxpayers money. You're listening to Here First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. A Midwest treatment center for teens experiencing trauma is facing lawsuits from former students around the country. They say they experienced physical and sexual abuse while at the facility in Lake Ozark, Missouri. More coming up after the break. Welcome back to Here First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. A residential treatment center in Missouri has said its vision is to become to childhood trauma what St. Jude is to childhood cancer. Now, an Iowa City resident is among former residents who say they left the facility more traumatized than when they arrived. The Midwest Newsroom's Luke Nozica reports, and as a warning to listeners, there are descriptions of physical abuse.
Lilo Bauer remembers waking in 2017 to find their mother sobbing at their bedside. There were 3 strangers standing in their northeastern Illinois home.
They posed this question, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Bauer, who is non-binary, was being gooned. In the so-called troubled teen industry, it's when a secure transport company, often hired by a teen's parent, takes a child to a boarding school or a treatment center. Bauer had heard horror stories about kids being thrown in vehicles and taken against their will, so they went willingly. Bauer didn't know it yet, but they were being taken hours away to Change Academy at Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. Also known as KALO, the facility takes in kids from across the country, promising a therapeutic environment to help them heal from developmental trauma. But some former students say employees used restraints that turned into physical abuse.
They're throwing kids to the ground, like being slammed to the ground. That happened to me so many times, like being slammed to the ground, you end up covered with bruises, and that happened frequently.
Bauer is now among 15 former students who are suing KALO, alleging physical and emotional abuse by staff. Their attorney, Kansas City-based Robert Thrasher, says about half of his clients were also sexually abused by fellow residents.
And when the kids show up and the parents leave, or when the kids are brought there, they are greeted with an environment that is very it's a very combative environment. It's been described as a prison-like environment. Everybody is kind of fending for themselves.
In a statement, a KALO spokesperson tells the Midwest Newsroom it does not tolerate staff aggression and denies all claims of abuse and neglect. KALO also says the lawsuits are without merit and that the facility exists to serve students and families the broader system has given up on. Another former student is Taylor Kiesel. She attended KALO in 2022 and 2023 and says she was in fight or flight mode 24/7.
They would instigate kids, especially like me with trauma. They would corner you, get up in your face, get you to do something so that they have the jurisdiction to restrain you.
Kiesel was 16 and 110 pounds when, she says, an employee assaulted her.
He grabbed me and he slammed me down onto the asphalt. Got a concussion that I was never treated for. And he began hitting me. And this is a guy that's probably 6'2", really bulky compared to me, a teenage girl at the time.
KALO is a licensed facility in Missouri, but does not currently hold a contract with the Children's Division. On rare occasions, Missouri has placed children in its legal custody there. Since KALO opened in 2007, Missouri's Child Welfare Agency has documented 5 findings of physical abuse and 5 of sexual abuse involving KALO. Records also show that the Camden County Sheriff's Office has received at least 400 calls tied to KALO's address, including for reports of runaways, assaults, and sexual abuse. As for Lilo Bauer, they graduated last month with a bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Iowa, where they are now in a master's program. They plan to become a social worker for survivors of abuse, including those harmed in the troubled teen industry.
We can support kids and their mental health without ripping them from homes and labeling them troubled teens.
No agency in the state of Missouri is currently investigating KALO. For the Midwest Newsroom, I'm Luke Nozica in St. Louis.
Reporting from the Midwest Newsroom, it's a collaboration of NPR and member stations in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. The Midwest Newsroom is also a member of the Trust Project. Thank you for listening to Here First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. Hope you've been having a great week and have a great Thursday.